Good morning and welcome to Apex Online Racing. We're here today for round 15 of the third season of AOR Oceania here on PS4 in the wonderful Singapore Marina Bay circuit. And well, what a track this is. We've had a couple of absolutely phenomenal races in this league here in the past. Last time out in season 15, well, it's technically season 2 for Oceania. We had a full wet race that was certainly a curveball for the drivers, but regardless of the conditions here today, this is going to be a long and tough race for the drivers. I heard a lot of reports from them saying that they're struggling with tires and in particular tire temperatures on the Hypersoft and the Ultrasoft. So it seems to be the strategy will certainly be a one-stop, as overtaking here can be quite challenging, but with drivers spending as much time in the race really as they can on the soft compound tires, as you know, the Hypersofts and the Ultrasofts do overheat very, very quickly, and if you want to make it's pretty much impossible to make the Hypersofts last any meaningful number of laps. And with the Ultrasofts, drive very conservatively, then you can make them go some distance. The tire wear itself is very low, but just a couple of mistakes and those tires will begin to overheat. So yeah, expecting a one-stop strategy. I mean, the two-stop around here has always been very, very fast in terms of raw lap time and race times, but the problem in coming through the field, it's just such a tight and technical circuit. There are not that many great overtaking opportunities, so it can be very, very difficult to pass around here. Just to give an update on the championship. Unfortunately, last week we missed the Italian Grand Prix. That race was not actually run due to pretty much half of the grid being away on Australia Day weekend. So that race has been postponed to the 17th of February. So that's when we'll be heading to Monza. So our last race that we had the drivers ran was Belgium. Norfolk Blue is on your screen now, picking up the win there. Yet another win for him, and he took the lead of the championship, 183 points, getting up ahead of Stuart Mackenzie on 181. So that title fight still going very close. James H as well in third. He's been very consistent so far this season. He's on a string of 4 podiums in a row, currently sitting in third with 164 points. Contrasting fourth, Darren in fifth. And the remainder of the top 10 goes as Frio, Pure Axle, Pete, MLJH, and Stylen, although a couple of those drivers have been missing quite a few races now. That has given an opportunity for some newer drivers to come in and do some reserving, although we don't really have any of them on the grid today. So yeah, we've got a few drivers out now on the soft compound tires, and this leads me to believe that they're going to qualify on the Ultrasoft for their preferred race strategy. So they'll go and get some running in the softs, go and get warmed up. It can always be kind of difficult when you're coming into a session in a league race where you've probably been sitting in the lobby for a good 10 minutes, and you spent the last little while as Norfolk Blue has a massive slide there in the third sector, really pushing the car hard. But it can be difficult to get yourself warmed up at the start of the session, and not just the car and the tires, but your driving as well. As Norfolk Blue crosses the line, 136, but I'm expecting to see that lap time absolutely smash when they go onto the faster tire compounds. Here we go. I mean, we do have 1 or 2 laps on the Hypers, but to be honest, I don't know if these are going to be representative times. I don't think so. I'm expecting to see some of the drivers down into the 1 minute 34s, especially the likes of Norfolk Blue and Stuart Mackenzie and so on. We'll hop on board with him now, and yeah, another one out there on the soft compound tires. So a number of these drivers just using these softs to get their eye in, and they'll have another set of softs for the race that they can use. So no worries in terms of tire wear, and these soft tires are a very good race tire. They're not exactly quick, but they will last basically the entire race distance, and they don't have nearly as many overheating problems as the softer compounds. Obviously, we have that one compound gap in the tires available. No super soft here in Singapore. So yeah, I mean, if a driver out there is capable of making those Ultrasofts last a fairly long time in the race without overheating them, then there might be a potential for an overcut perhaps in the first stint, or possibly go onto them later in the race and catch up and get some passes done. But realistically, it's very, very hard to look after those tires. So that's going to be the main point to watch in the race is when people start to struggle on their tires and when they bail into the pits to grab themselves a set of soft tires. But for anybody that's out there on is possibly thinking about an alternate strategy, maybe start the race on the softs and go to the ultras later on and try and get some overtakes done. We do only have 12 drivers, so there is an opportunity there for anybody that really wants it to start very near the points on what could be a better strategy. It will require some overtaking, but if you're on ultras, especially fresh ultras compared to people on worn softs, you should be able to get the move done. It's more so when you're on the same strategy as someone else and the pace is quite similar. The overtaking around here is very, very difficult. Really takes some kind of mistake from the car in front, but it's a track where there are generally quite a lot of mistakes from the drivers. This race will always throw up chaos. Plenty of chaos and plenty of errors, so yeah, it's just don't ever write off the Singapore Grand Prix. It's often a race that looks like it's completely done and dusted, and then it all kicks off in the final few laps after somebody sticks it in a wall. But I can confirm as well, in terms of the strategy, or at least for the weather, that it is meant to be clear weather for the race, so we should see these slick tire compound strategies come into play, and I think the drivers will maybe be a little relieved that it's not raining again like it was last season here, because that was a very, very long and tough race for the drivers. I think it lasted something like 65 minutes, which for a 50% race is quite a grueling task. But as we're 8 minutes into this qualifying session now, we have had a couple drivers out there on the hyper soft tires, so these guys taking a little bit of a gamble, but grip position is so critical here, and it certainly is easy to defend at this track. So if you can get yourself high up on the grid and just pretty much park the bus, then who knows, we could have a surprise result today from someone. Pure Axel, the leader out of those with a 1:35.5, but I'm expecting to see that time come down as the session goes on. This is a track, there's so many corners. We've got 23 corners around here, and it's difficult to hook up a perfect qualifying lap simply because of the sheer number of corners. You've just got so many opportunities to make mistakes. So yeah, it's hard to hook up that perfect lap, but at the same time that means that the differences between drivers is much larger at the circuit than it typically is. We've just been to, well, at least in the European League side of thing, we've just been to Monza, and especially the lap times and the higher splits over there, where there's nothing between the drivers really. It was just a 10th here and a 10th there, whereas this track, if you put in the time and effort and have a good setup and are feeling comfortable with the track, you can easily be half a second faster than other drivers, or even more. So yeah, it certainly is a circuit where it splits the drivers by a long way. Still got a number of drivers without any kind of qualifying lap. Contrast is one of those. He'll be looking to certainly secure that 4th place in the championship over the last few rounds of this season. Still got quite a few races to go though, so still plenty of time for anything really to happen, and who knows, if Contrast can find some form in the back part of the season, and top 3 in the championship might not be entirely out of his reach. He's currently sitting 4th in the championship with 128 points. He's currently 36 points behind 3rd place, which is James H., who you will notice is not here today. So yeah, good opportunity for Contrast to gain some points on him, but just out there on the soft compound tires, making those tires work, getting his eye in at the circuit once again, and expect to see him out on the ultra softs later on in the session. Probably a mad dash towards the end of the session on those ultra soft tires. So yeah, looking over at the fitted tires now, Norfolk Blue, our championship leader, has been in phenomenal form as of late. Has taken well, an exploratory line there. Don't think that's quite legal, but I'll see if anybody says anything about it for Norfolk Blue. But yeah, he's out there now on the ultra soft tires, and will likely be his qualifying tire. I'm assuming he's going out now. There's still 7 minutes left. The track's not quite at his best yet, but I think he's out there just to make sure that if he is going to make a mistake on his lap, there is some kind of error there, that he'll have enough time to get into the, get back into the pits, put on some hypersofts, and then do a run on those towards the end, as there's some very creative lines coming through. But we will see if he does start a lap. No, he doesn't. He's coming back to the pits, so he just seemed to come out of the pits there and then do a lap and then come back in. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there for Norfolk Blue. A bit of a weird case, but we'll hop aboard with someone else as we got Pure Axel currently sitting in second place. There's a lot of oversteer through turn 2, the curb just catching that Mercedes. He now comes down into turn 4. He's backed out already. Wow. So he's clearly made a bit of a mistake there in the first sector and just decided he's already lost too much time. He's going to back out of the lap. Oh, I see what's happened. Apparently, according to the chat, I think Norfolk may have accidentally blocked Darren on one of his laps, and that's maybe why he just came straight back into the pits. There might have been an incident that we missed between those two. Who else can we hop on board with? Plus, doesn't look like he's on a lap. So Crema has retired from the session already, so he'll have a free choice of tyres most likely, assuming that Pete here puts in a time. I think it was Pete that was saying that he didn't have a huge amount of practice before this race, and this was certainly a tough race to do with very little practice. Just simply so many corners and braking points to memorize and to kind of drill and practice to make sure you're getting them right. And there are some circuits on the calendar where you can rock up without a huge amount of practice and kind of get away with it. And some of the tracks with fewer corners, Austria for example, you don't need a huge amount of practice to get up to a decent pace around there. There's just not that many braking zones to learn, but around here, man, that practice time really does make all the difference. So we'll see how Pete gets on tonight. Might just be a night of damage limitation. He's got a big moment of oversteer over the curve there, coming across the bridge, around the hairpin now. Very awkward on the brakes through there. It's so easy to lock up and run very deep into that hairpin. It's coming now down into the third sector. And into this sort of back-to-back-to-back chicane section, which is all rather awkward over the curves and be very difficult to get on the power. Careful with the wall there as well, and here. So yeah, this is a very, very easy track to stick it in a wall in this third sector. Just so many places where you don't want to get too close to the wall because you don't want to put it in the wall, but at the same time you have to get close to the wall to get the absolute lap time that you need. So yeah, it's just very, very difficult. But Pete here has pulled into the pits. He's not going to complete that lap. So Axel seems to be going for a second run on these Hypersoft tires. He did back out of his first lap very early on, so he shouldn't have too much of a problem in terms of tire wear on these Hypersofts. He understeers really, really badly though, coming onto the bridge, and that will have cost him a whole heap of time. We'll see if he continues with this lap, but that was a big, big mistake from Axel coming across the bridge as he now comes down into the third sector, braking a little bit earlier into there than Pete, it seems like. Gets that car tucked in nicely. He's going to now come into the first of the chicanes, and you want to be taking as much of that curb as possible, and maybe as much of that curb on the left as possible. Axel decides not to use it. He gets the car tucked in under the grandstands. Very awkward section there. You feel like you want to get on the power much earlier than you really can. The car just understeers horribly through that section as he's going to pull it into the pits now as well, so he's not up on his time. A lot of drivers struggling to really get a representative lap in. I was expecting to see, times well into the 34s, but nobody's quite been able to hook it up yet. There have been a couple of mistakes on laps from some of the top drivers. Norfolk Blue, let's go on board with him, as he is on a lap on the ultra soft compound tires. Remember, his best lap so far was actually set on the soft, so he should have plenty of improvement in his pocket available to him on these ultras. Takes a whole heap of curb going onto the bridge there. Very smooth though, gets the car tucked in beautifully through the hairpin. Now hard on the power. Down towards the third sector, just after that 100-meter board is what you're looking for on the left-hand side as your braking point. Turn it in nicely once again. Norfolk Blue just looks like he's, not quite cruising through this lap. It's quick, but it's stable. He's not overdriving the car at all. He's just letting the car do the work for him, essentially. We'll see what he's able to do. He takes a whole heap of curve through the final chicane there. You want to try and get right up towards that wall. No, it looks like he's backed out of it. So will he go a second time? That is what's going to happen. So Norfolk Blue's going to go a second time now. So who can we hop on board with? Let's hop on board with his teammate Piga in the Renault, currently sitting in 6th place. And man, that would be a great qualifying position for him. What tires is it? So he set his lap on the Hypersofts. So he's currently sitting in 6th on the Hypers. He's trying to beat his lap time on the Ultras. And is that just a little bit of rain that I saw there? I'm not entirely sure. Might just be a graphical effect, but keep an eye on that. As we got a yellow flag in Sector 1 as somebody is off. Not quite sure who that is. We'll stay on board with Piga for the rest of this lap. He's just missed the hairpin, and the apex of the hairpin there. That'll cost him a 10th or 2. And yeah, I think it is very, very lightly spinning with rain here in Singapore at the end of this session. That might mean that some of the drivers will be unable to improve on their final runs. If this starts to come down a little heavier into the final minute or so, it's going to be really tough for those guys out there to improve. And I think some of these lap times might be quite a lot slower than what we first anticipated, as Piga's too deep onto the grandstand and he hits the wall, takes off a chunk of his front wing. I'd be amazed if he's still up on his lap time. Is he going to pull it round across the line? He does. Very cautious with the lack of downforce on the front end of that car, and he's not able to improve, so Piga will likely be starting the race on the Hypersoft tires. We'll put that on to best for now, as Norfolk Blue is just about running out of energy across the line. He's very, very low. What is his lap time going to be? There's the 34.9, but man, that'll be, I don't know, it's not quite as much as... well, it's not quite enough to get him completely out of the firing range of some of these guys on the Hypersofts, but the rain coming down means it's going to be so difficult to hook up this lap, as Darren is impossibly late on the brakes coming into the second sector there. Look at that, he booked so late into there. Somehow got the car to the apex of the corner. He's a little wide there through the left. Such an awkward corner that the car just understeers all day through there. So we now come through the sort of swing section onto the bridge. Oh, he's just missed the apex entirely. That'll be the lap invalidated for sure for Darren. Just turned in way too early. What else have we got here? Pure Axle on the lap, currently sitting in 3rd place. Out there on the Hypersoft tires, we'll be aiming for pole position, but this rain coming down, it's just so difficult to hook up the lap. As we've seen from a number of drivers, we've got a couple of these guys in the top 10 at the moment that are sitting there on the soft compound tires. I don't think they're able to improve because the track is getting damp. So it's going to be very difficult for them. I mean, Pure Axle's still going on this lap, so he may well be improving. Yeah, for the likes of Contrast and MLGH there on the softs in 7th and 8th, that's not bad. That's an interesting strategy call from those lads. This Pure Axle now, he understeers quite badly through the final chicane. Struggling to get on the power too. Look at that, had to go for a big lift and a short shift on exit there as he crosses the line. And it's not an improvement from Axel, and that is our qualifying session over. So the rain coming down at the end, just really throwing a spanner in the works for pretty much every single driver out there. I think the only person to actually improve was Norfolk Blue, and he was practically running out of energy at the end of his lap. So yeah, it's less than ideal for a number of drivers, but for the likes of Contrast and MLGH, they will be so happy with that. Starting 7th and 8th on a completely alternate strategy. Just the way that session is worked out for them. Yeah, okay, they might have not got a clean run in on the Hypers Ultras like they would have wanted, but they're in a very interesting place strategy-wise. They'll struggle for the first lap or two on those softs. They do take a while to warm up, especially around a street circuit. It can be quite difficult to get heat in the tires, but well, at least heat in the soft tires on the formation lap. You just don't got a lot of room to weave around and to work the tires there. But we do have Norfolk Blue on pole on the ultra soft tires. He will be very happy with that. He's got Darren alongside him on the Hypers, followed by Pure Axle and Stuart McKenzie, and then Plebs and Pig, all those guys on the Hypersofts. And we got Contrast and MLGH on the softs. P. Crichton in 9th on the Hypers, and not a great qualifying from him. Hiro Tomato goes to the alternate strategy somewhat as well with the ultra soft tires. Kremit and Maznat outside of the top 10. They've got the free choice of tires, so they can choose to do whatever they want, I would expect. those two not qualifying means that they want to start the race on the soft compound tires, but we'll see what they go for. Who knows? I mean, if they do go for a fresh set of ultras or hypers, they'll get some work done in the opening laps. But we'll see if they go for that, or if they go for aggression at the start of the race or more towards the end of the race. It should be a clean race, a clear race here in Singapore. So as the drivers make some last minute changes to those setups, generally around here you want an oversteering car in qualifying, go for that absolute lap time, but in the race, if your car starts to oversteer, you will destroy the rear tires very, very quickly. So the drivers might be dropping a little bit of front wing, maybe opening up the differential, pretty much doing every single trick in the book to grab themselves a bit better tire wear and a little bit more of a stable car, just to look after those rear tires as the race continues. In terms of other things they can do, they can mess around with that brake bias, and in particular that brake bias can be quite helpful in terms of looking after the tire temperatures. If you're overheating your rears, if you throw that brake bias further towards the front of the car, and it just puts a little bit more pressure on the front tires, and it takes a little bit of the strain off of the rear tires. So that can be something that the drivers will likely be doing around here as well. Of course, it depends on your setup. For those guys that are running aggressive setups with very high ballast, people running 9 and 10 ballast around here, their concern will all be about looking after those rear tires, whereas the guys who are maybe running a more conservative setup, perhaps some 7 or 8 ballast, might be more concerned about that front right tire overheating. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see when these tires start to go off. I think Norfolk Blue is in a very good position on these ultras. The guys behind are in for they're in for an interesting time, we'll put it that way. These hypersofts will overheat very, very quickly. I would not be surprised to see these guys in the pits after just 3 or 4, maybe 5 laps on the hypersofts. They really do hit that overheating range incredibly fast, and if you want to make these tires last, if you want to make them go any sort of reasonable length of time, you do need to drive very conservatively and extremely smoothly. So yeah, we'll see if anybody's able to do that on the hypers. We do have a big group of them here, 6 out of the top 7 on the hypersofts, and then we work our way down to the likes of Contrast and MLJH on the soft tires. Those guys outside of the top 10. So LJB did manage to get in during the qualifying session as well. He was just a little bit late to the lobby, but he did make it in for the race. Krama and LJB on the ultras, Maznat on the softs. So yeah, he's going for that alternate strategy as well. So we've got 3 drivers running long, and they will run very long into this race. I'd expect to see them on those softs up until roughly about lap 20 before they start thinking about the ultras. And if they know they have troubles keeping the ultras in a working range, then they might even go further than that. But we will see in terms of what they do as we're gridding up now for the 15th round of the season here in Singapore. It's been a brilliant season so far, and Norfolk Blue is looking to grab yet another win. He's got the most out of anyone this season. He's on pole position, but he does have Darren on the hypersofts alongside him, as this is round 15 of AOR Oceania here on PS4 as we build up to 5 lights in Singapore. And it is lights out, and away we go. And Norfolk Blue has had a really awful start there off the grid. He's been mugged already by 2 cars into turn 1. That's almost going to be 3 as Pure Axles up his inside into turn 3 as Darren takes the lead here. Those Ultrasofts not working off the grid at all for Norfolk Blue. As he throws it down the inside at turn 4 and just about gets that position back on Pure Axles. So fighting back hard is Norfolk. Very, very nice move there. We'll see if Pure Axel has anything to say about it as the leaders are going side by side into turn number 6. Stuart McKenzie making a move. He's had a brilliant start, up from I think 4th on the grid, but yeah, he had to go at Darren into turn 6 there. Wasn't quite able to get it done. Darren defending for his life through there. He's really been the standout driver in the second half of this season, at least in terms of improvement. There's been a lag contact there between Stuart and Darren. 100% that was connection. His car just got picked up off the back of it, and we have a virtual safety car here in Singapore. That might be the first one we've had of the season. But yeah, Stuart's car, he was right behind Darren, and I think there's been some kind of desync or something's happened there because his car just got picked up and flung into the wall. So Stuart McKenzie, one of our championship contenders, is out of this race now on lap 1 through, at least on my end, looks like no fault of his own, no fault of Darren's either. It should be mentioned, you know, obviously I'm in the UK, so I'm sort of watching this at considerable ping. So that might not be necessarily what happened on their screens, but it certainly looks like desync to me. As the virtual safety car is gone now, but what that's meant is Norfolk Blue is right on the back of Darren here, right back on the back. That's an awkward thing to say. As Darren leads the way onto the second lap of the race. But yes, Stuart McKenzie is out of the Singapore Grand Prix, and that is a massive hit to his championship, and he's left the session. He will be absolutely livid with that. I don't blame him for it. But yeah, Norfolk Blue on these Ultras now, and we'll see how the Ultras compare to the Hypersofts as this stint goes on. As Darren is lagging around a little bit as well, so that maybe was what caused the incident with Stuart. Well, I'm sure that we'll find out post-race between the drivers, as Darren actually may have disconnected here. Look at this. His car has got that red cross on it, and Norfolk Blue up the inside. He takes the lead, and yeah, Darren having major connection problems here in Singapore, so it's all going horribly wrong for him. He had a great start, great launch off the line, and now he's just gone. Oh no, he's jumped back up in front of Norfolk Blue. Oh, that's that is terribly distracting for the drivers. I thought he completely disconnected, but actually his car has just reappeared back in the lead. So yeah, Norfolk Blue still got a bit of work to do to get that lead back. So much going on up at the front here. Let's try and get a hold of what else has happened over this lead lap. Position changes. We've had a phenomenal start for Sir LJB, up 4 places. Good start for P. Crichton as well. He is on those Hypersoft tires, so he needs to gain positions desperately. As we've got a yellow flag coming into Sector 3. Who is that? I think it's Harry Tomato has had an incident, perhaps with a wall somewhere. He drops down to 11th place. So yeah, he's had an off, I think, coming at that right-hander coming into Sector 3. Might have just run deep there down the escape road, didn't quite catch it, but I would assume that's what happened. It's quite easy to run deep into that corner. It's actually a kind of deceptively long braking zone for the style of corner that it is. Norfolk Blue just hanging on. He's only just outside the DRS range from Darren, so Darren's done a good job to drop him out of that, and we'll hope to build somewhat of a gap before he bails into the pits off these Hypersofts. Pure Axle also going very nicely in 3rd place there. And it's just about for these guys just trying to make these tires last. You know, it's a kind of unintuitive thing as a racing driver to you know, to not push the car and to not go for lap times, but you just have to focus on driving as smooth as you possibly can around here. Really the only thing that you can do. Yeah, we lost Crema somewhere in that as well. I didn't quite catch that, but he is out of this race too. So we're down to 11 drivers. Singapore causing issues already. But look at this, as we're only on lap 3, and these Ultrasofts are starting to come towards Norfolk Blue, and he is right on the back of Darren, just 6/10 behind. And now we'll see, can Norfolk get any kind of overtaking move done on Darren? For him, the earlier he can make this move, the better. If his Ultrasofts are already working better than those Hypers, then he needs to pull a gap, because these Hypersoft guys will be in the pits not too long, and you know, they might get a bit of an undercut possibly. Just depends on what Norfolk's pace is like in clean air, because you know, if these guys have to pit very early, then the Ultrasofts will still be faster than fresh softs, but if they can make them last maybe a few more laps, then they might have an advantage in terms of the tires there, especially considering Norfolk has done qualifying and an extra qualifying lap on these tires too. No move happening there, but we do have a move happening for 5th place as Pete Crichton goes down the inside on Contrast on those Hypersoft tires, and he gets past Contrast, who's on the softs. These guys are battling really, really hard, but yeah, I mean, Contrast, you know, he's in a pretty good position. Oh, he nearly runs into the back of Pete Crichton there as well. Once again, I'm not entirely sure if that's like connection related, or if he's just got so much more straight line speed than that Sauber. But yeah, very nearly an incident as Pete almost runs deep into the wall there. But yeah, good move from Pete through the first couple of corners. Very scary going side by side through that section, but he has gotten the move done on those hypersoft tires. He needed to get that done, and now it's just about if he can pull away, but pull away well, ensuring that he doesn't overheat those tires. As the front three are starting to group up together, Norfolk Blue is all over the back. As Masnad gets a speeding in the pit lane penalty, that's not ideal. He's already a long way back too. He might actually go a lap down from that, but Norfolk Blue is all over the back of Darren. Look at this, these Ultrasofts coming into a league of their own compared to the Hypers, as Darren is really struggling. Pure Axle is catching up to them as well, so Darren, I think, has clearly overheated these Hypers. It's only lap 4, but that's Singapore for you, as look at the traction that Norfolk Blue has compared to him. Darren continues on in his tires, look at that! Oversteer through the final corner. Norfolk has to completely back off, and here comes Pure Axle up in a second place. He'll take advantage. He flings it down the inside. He's going for the lead here at turn 1. Thumps the curb on the inside. Gets it just about slowed down for turn 3. He's still there on the inside, and now going to turn to the outside for turn 4 as he's trying to get that Mercedes up into the lead of the race. He's later on the brakes. He swings it around the outside, and that is a beautiful move from Pure Axle. So opportunistic, and he gets that done. And now Darren's got to worry about this Renault coming past him, and well, he's not going to worry too much. Norfolk is basically past him by the time that they hit the corner, but Darren is really struggling on his tires. He needs to bail into the pits on this lap because he is just sliding everywhere. Those Hypers are just totally gone for him. Pure Axle's been a little more cautious on the tires, it seems, and has a bit left, but I'm not sure he's got enough left to pull away from Norfolk Blue, who just seems to be so quick on these Ultras at the moment. He's making them work beautifully, as we have had, I think, a couple people into the pits already. That's the wrong button. So stops, yeah, so Plebs, Pete Crichton and Piga, they've all bailed into the pits off their Hypers on lap 4, so I think they've done the right call. Look at this, Darren's dropped 2.5 seconds in a single sector to these two. He's absolutely falling off the back of them. Pure Axle still making those Hypers last fairly well, so he's hanging on in there. You've got to say that, well, Norfolk Blue really is in the box seat now, especially considering his main championship rivals out of this race. And we'll see if Pure Axle bails into the pit lane as Norfolk Blue whacks the wall at the final corner. Has that given him some front wing damage? I'll try to get a look at this if we can get a half decent camera angle of that front wing. It looks alright, so maybe he got away with it. It was a pretty hard hit, to be honest, but he seems to have gotten away with it fairly well. So Axel and Darren come into the pits as Masnad has called it a day. He's out of this race. We're down to 9 drivers now. So yeah, Masnad is, I think, stacked it somewhere. But yeah, Singapore already taking casualties. As now this is interesting. Got a couple drivers on the 2-stop strategy on here. Likes of Plebs and Pete Crichton going for the Ultrasoft tires as Plebs takes a very interesting length to the final corner. Not quite sure that's how you want to do that. As Pete Crichton's going to throw it up the inside into turn 1 and just gets his car in front. That's a great move. He did cut a corner to kind of do it, but I think he was just trying to avoid running into the Force India there. Picks up a 3-second time penalty for his efforts. But yeah, I mean, these guys, they're going for a 2-stop strategy. Look at this, Pure Axle's on the Ultras as well. So yeah, very different from what I was expecting. I was expecting all these guys to just go into the softs and run to the end of the race, but you know, it might just be down to the fact that there are fewer drivers on the grid. I mean, we've only got 9 people running left, and Harry Tomato's had an incident or two, and it's quite a long way back. So there's a lot more clean track available for the drivers. So, you know, this is one of those things that comes with racing experience. If you do in practice and you do, you know, a 2-stop strategy and find that, well, hey, you know, it's hard to overtake, but if you can get a clean run, it might be faster. And then you get into a situation like this where essentially half of the grid is already gone. It can be better maybe to just go for that 2-stop strategy and to run for that absolute fastest race time, as Norfolk Blue sets the fastest lap of the race, a 40.3. He is storming away out in front, 11 seconds to contrast behind him, who is on the soft compound tires, find himself on the podium. Same with MLGH. He's doing a very good job to hang on to the back of Contrast. Contrast usually one of the front runners, MLGH only one of our midfielders, but he's doing a great job keeping up with that Toro Rosso right now. These soft tires will begin to I think at this point they'll be a pretty comfortable race tire, and we'll see if Contrast is able to hang with Norfolk Blue pace-wise. Just depends on how long Norfolk Blue is able to take these ultra soft tires. I mean, it just depends how careful you are with the temperatures. You know, you can overheat them in 5 laps if you push, or you can make them last 15 laps if you're extremely gentle on them. It just depends on your driving style. Just seem a little bit quicker than Contrast at the moment. He is pulling away still, so it's not overheating them yet. I'm sure that his lap times will drop off very significantly once that starts to happen. As MLJH is it's not quite within the DRS of Contrast, but he's not far away either. He just needs a couple tenths to get himself within that kind of free lap time for the DRS there. And you know, dirty air can be quite difficult around this circuit, but I still think the advantage of a slipstream and some DRS will more than make up for it. So it can be easier to follow another car. I mean, it's a circuit kind of like Monaco, where it's, you know, if you're maybe lacking a little bit of confidence around the track, it's actually easier to follow another car around than it is to sort of drive in clean air by yourself. You can look at their lines and see how they're taking the corners and kind of learn from them as you go. But that obviously depends on how much confidence you have in the circuit. I mean, if you're, you know, feeling very confident, it's always better to be in clean air and just have zero distractions, and that's what Norfolk Blue is doing right now. Look at that, the gap's gone from 11.5 to 13 seconds, so he does have the pace advantage on these two guys on the soft still, as MLJH is just about getting himself within that DRS range, as Pure Axel sets the fastest lap of the race, though well into the 39s. Darren just beats that by, I think, 4 thousandths between those two. But yeah, I mean, look at the difference in that final lap on the hyper soft tires. That has ended up with Pure Axel having a 4, almost 5 second advantage over Darren. And these guys, you know, if they're running into the 39s, they're going roughly a second a lap faster than Norfolk Blue. Pure Axel's currently 24 seconds behind, and the pit stop here is really long, so I think that they will get a big undercut on Norfolk Blue. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, but yeah, they should get a very big undercut on him, although they will need to make one extra pit stop later on in the race. But I'm just really interested to see how that strategy gamble pays out for them. I mean, I say a gamble, you know, there's 4 of them all going for the same thing, all on those ultra soft tires. It just comes down to whether they can make those ultra soft tires last, and if they need to go for the softs in the second stint, and if they do need to make a pit stop onto the softs on a 2-stop strategy, then yeah, that'll be very disappointing for them. Really put a spanner in the works in that strategy, but we'll see if anybody's able to make those ultra softs work in the way that Norfolk Blue is making them work up front at the moment, still extending that gap to these soft runners behind. So yeah, things certainly spreading out more as the race goes on. Pure Axel setting fast laps. We'll see if Darren is able to hang with that. Not quite. You know, it just depends on whether these guys are able to get this undercut done on Norfolk Blue. Look at that, the gap is down to 23 seconds to the leader now. So Pure Axel going very, very nicely, and that'll give him track position. And the longer Norfolk Blue stays out, the more positions he's going to drop. I don't think he's at risk from Darren yet, but a few more laps and he might be. Let's see if Darren's able to get that gap down to roughly 26 seconds is what it would need to be, I think, for him to get that undercut. MLJH here just hanging on to the back of Contrast, doing a really good job. I'll just double check where MLJH is sitting in the championship right now. He's currently in 9th with 51 points. He's got Pete actually just 5 points ahead of him. So if MLJH is able to pick up, a podium here today, he's currently sitting in one. Obviously, he's still got a pit stop to make, but we think all the guys behind have a pit stop to make as well. The only other person, it seems to be, so we got the top 3 that seem to be on a 1-stop strategy, and then the next 4, so Pure Axel through to Plevs, are on a 2-stop. I think Piga is on. Piga's on the 1-stop as well. He's gone onto the soft compound tire, so we'll see how he gets on. He's dropping off the back of those ultra soft runners a bit, but that's kind of expected, to be honest. Those ultra soft tires are very quick. Oh, MLJH with the huge slide to the final corner. How on earth did he save that? That was very, very scary for him. He somehow kept it within the DRS range as well, despite it. Very, very nearly binned it into the pit wall. As we got yellows in Sector 3. Oh, Plevs has put that in the wall. Pig has pretty much followed him in. I think he's broken his wing off of that. Very, very messy stuff going on towards the back of the field. Plevs has surely got... Oh, yeah, look at his front wing. It's completely gone. There's another virtual safety car. Surely he'll pit. He does. So, yeah, he's lost a huge amount of time, but at least that virtual safety car has come at a good time for him. I'm pretty sure that he caused it by putting it in the wall there, but he'll get pretty much a free pit stop, so it's not quite race over for Plevs yet. We'll see what tyres he goes for. I'm assuming it's going to be the softs. They run to the end of the race. It is the soft tyres, so he will. This will be his final pit stop of the race, hopefully, unless he finds another wall at some point, which is not entirely out of the question. It's very easy to put it in one here. As we're under the virtual safety car now, where's Norfolk Blue on the track? He is in the third sector, so if this virtual safety car is still going by the time he hits the pits, then he will very likely bring it into the pits. Although, is he up in the pace a bit? No, not quite. It's still going here, so this is really perfect time. Oh no, it's ended now. So yeah, he'll be able to continue on, and that virtual safety car will just allow him an opportunity to cool these ultra soft tires down. You know, get them back into a better working range, and you know, just extend the life of that tire a little bit. Really, really nicely timed virtual safety car for Norfolk Blue. He wasn't quite able to get a free pit stop, but you know, he certainly would be quite happy with having a little bit of extra tire life, because obviously when you're under the virtual safety car, you're running around much slower than usual, and you can just bring those temperatures back down a little bit. Also do, you know, a little bit of energy and fuel saving, although, you know, fuel saving is not too much of a concern around here. It's very, very easy to save fuel at this circuit, and if you're looking after those rear tires, you also want to be running lean in the traction zones anyway, just for the superior traction in that mode. But yeah, Norfolk Blue is still extending this gap out to the guys behind him, Contrast and MLJH. Just he's pulling away, still around about 1 second a lap, it seems like. So those ultra softs working really, really well for him. MLGH has just dropped out of the DRS from Contrast, as these guys are going to run really long into the race. I mean, I'd expect to see them run till at least lap 20. And they're going to have pure axle causing them problems in a few laps time. Well, these ultra softs has been very quick since the pit stop. Been the fastest man on the entire track since that pit stop, and he's only a couple seconds behind them now. So for pure axle on this two-stop strategy, he will need to get these moves done as quickly as he possibly can. Whereas Darren, you know, he's gained a little bit on Norfolk, but it's not enough. He needs to be within about 26 seconds to get this undercut done. Norfolk Blue, does he stay out? He does. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, if Norfolk does come out behind Darren, then he might have some troubles. You know, Pure Axle's able to get past these two soft runners as well. I mean, I'm assuming that he won't have too much trouble looking at the relative pace. I mean, he's a good second lap quicker than those guys at the moment. He's really, you know, really reeling them in. But you know, once again, in Singapore, it's not always easy to overtake. Pure Axle is kind of prepared for it, though. He's got a huge amount of energy. Look at that. He's basically got a full bar. So he's ready to get this move done. Store that up, and he knows that this is a critical moment in the race for him to get past these two guys, because if he gets held up and he gets stuck behind him, then Norfolk Blue may well come out of the pits in front. Yeah, Darren he's still faster than Norfolk, so the undercut might work here for him. But yeah, I mean, Norfolk Blue is he's in really, really good position, because he just has that one more stop to make, and has a big lead on it. Whereas, you know, Pure Axle and Darren, they still have that extra stop to make, too. Although I'm not sure what they'll go for. I mean, they could go for softs, they could go for ultras. I'm assuming on the two-stop strategy that they'll try and run these ultras. Well, I mean, they'll try and run them about 12-13 laps per set, and that would just about give them enough laps to do two sets of ultras to the end. But we'll see. Just depends on how they are in terms of the tire temperatures. I think especially Darren was really struggling in that first stint, so he may well need to go into the softs for his third stint of the race. Pure Axel makes his way past MLGH. Lost a little bit of time there, but he got it done fairly quickly, and that's the main thing, getting cars between himself and Darren, and Contrast is the next one up. See, Norfolk Blue carries on yet again. We're 13 laps in, so he will run those as long as he really possibly can. But yeah, things very spread out here, apart from this little group here in Singapore. It's all quite tense up at this front end, but as things are looking further down, Pete Crichton's running in a massive no man's land in 6th at the moment. Then we've got Piggott in 7th, but he did have a run in with a wall at one point under the bridge, so I think he's carrying a bit of damage. A minute down, Plevs, he's running there in 8th. Obviously he ran into that wall as well, coming under the grandstand, so he's been in the wars a bit. And then Harry Tomato, well, he's been in the wars a lot. How many pit stops has Harry Tomato made, actually? That's the wrong button again. What am I doing? He's just been in the pits twice. I did see him on the Hypersofts earlier in the race, but yeah, he's very much in a world of his own at the moment. I just lost too much time with the incidents early on. So, yeah, Harry Tomato's got, I think he's just got to bring it home and grab whatever points that he can. He's been in that situation a couple of times in this season so far. He's currently sitting 17th in the championship, but he is on a 3-point streak, well, 3-race point streak. Last 3 results being 7th, 8th, and 10th. So if he can grab another couple points here today, he will actually jump Entei in the championships. That would be nice for him. But of course, there's a long way to go here, and well, it's getting to the end of Singapore is not always the easiest thing. Sometimes the mission really is just to survive here, but Pure Axel now picks up a 3-second time penalty through that final corner. He's on to the back of Contrast, and I assume that this will be a DRS move down into turn 6. Still faster than Norfolk Blue. He's still gaining time on him. That's what he needs to do. He needs to get this move done cleanly along this DRS straight, focus on getting a really good exit. It's quite a long way back, though. He does get that engine up into mode 4, looking for the overtake. And is Contrast going to fight this? Is Pure Axel even close enough? He's going to have a go at it. He flings it up the inside, but he's not quite able to get it done on the brakes. And it's worked out really poorly for Axel. So Contrast hangs on to that 2nd place for now. But these guys are on very different strategies. And I mean, it's interesting because if Pure Axel does go onto the Ultra Softs for his 2nd stint, and Contrast is going onto the Ultras, I would assume, for his 2nd stint as well, then this is technically a battle for track position, really. I mean, net track position. So, a net position in the race is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, Axel does need to get this move done. If he starting to lose time in Norfolk Blue, look at that. It was 20.8. It's now 21.1. So he really needs to be making the most of these tires. He's still got a lot of energy, whereas Contrast still actually has a fair amount as well, slightly less than Axel, but not a huge amount of difference. Norfolk Blue, is he in the pits yet? He is. So Norfolk Blue pits on lap 14 of the race, taking these Ultra Softs a long, long way, and he will surely go on to the soft compound tires to the end of the race. But Axel all over the back of Contrast, a little bit of a weave there. He's feeling that's him trying to send a Contrast, look, I'm quicker, just let me go, there's no point battling, but he's right on the back of him now, and Contrast is going defensive into turn 1. He does not want to give him an inch as Axel flings it around the outside of turn 1, and he's going to go all the way around the outside of turn 3 as well, and he gets the move done. Those Ultra Soft tires giving him the purchase that he needs, and he takes the lead of the race, but he has one more pit stop to do, and Norfolk Blue, he's actually come out of the pits miles behind Darren. Darren has caught up to this group considerably, actually, over the last few laps, and Norfolk Blue is a long, long way back. I'm not quite sure if he had did he have a wing change possibly, or I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe the pit lane time is just much longer than I thought. But he is now 12 seconds behind Pure Axel. So these strategies, very, very interesting what we're going to see here. I mean, if Axel can make this 2-stop work, he may catch up to Norfolk Blue by the end of the race, because if he goes on to another set of Ultras, he will have an absolutely massive pace advantage compared to Norfolk on some fairly worn softs at that point. Although Norfolk extending that stint as long as he did will give him the best chance on those soft tires for the second half of this race. So let's give a quick rundown Pure Axel in the lead of the race. He has one more pit stop to make, so do Contrast and MLJH on these soft compound tires. I'm assuming that all of these guys are going to go onto the ultra softs in the second half of the race, but we'll see what these two stoppers do. I mean, Axel could bail onto a set of softs if he's struggling on the ultras towards the end of this stint. He needs another few laps out of them. Realistically, he needs to get himself to, I think, at least lap 18, maybe 19 if he wants to get those ultras to the end in decent shape. So we'll see if he's able to get those few extra laps in. Contrast and MLJH will be looking to get at least 18, 19, and possibly further as well on the softs. The softs don't really degrade in terms of lap time at all, to be honest. They're basically the same pace throughout the entire stint, so you can be quite happy running those. As Darren is in the pits, I think that this is basically forced by tire temperatures, and he's on a softs. Yeah, he has to go for the soft tires. He's got a front wing change to make as well, so that might be part of it too. But yeah, I mean, it's he's got half the race to go. I think he's realised that those ultra softs are not working for him. He had a lot of tyre problems in that first stint. As Pete Crichton is in as well, so he's going for the softs. So these guys on a two-stop strategy from hypers to ultras to softs, using every single tyre compound. Very interesting. He had that stop-go penalty as well, so yeah, he's clearly suspended the pits in his first pit stop there. Missed that. Yeah, looking further up, that gives Norfolk Blue a clean run at this top three. He is our lead man to have made all of his pit stops, essentially. So we've got yellow flags in Sector 3. Who is that? It's Piga, has run into a wall somewhere just under the grandstand, I think. His front wing looks, I think his front wing looks okay. Seems to have all of his winglets on it, so yeah, I think he may have just missed his braking point and perhaps gone down the escape road or something. He's had a moment there as well. Currently sitting in 8th place on some pretty fresh ultra soft tires, so he should have some grip under him, but a long way back. And that pit stop from Norfolk Blue has meant that Terry Tomato's back on the lead lap as well, so he'll be quite happy with that. And I think he'll be planning on taking those soft tires all the way to the end of the race. See if he can get that strategy done. Obviously had an incident early on and built onto some hypersofts, and I think very quickly found out that those were not a great race tire, and has come back onto the soft tires, and we'll take those to the end. But yeah, Axel still pulling away from Contrast, but now the Norfolk Blue is getting these soft tires up to temperature. I think he is a bit quicker than Axel, so Axel's going to have a huge amount of work to do in the second half of the race if he wants to win it on those ultra soft tires. But a very interesting strategy from him, and I think a couple people will be taking notes from this race, and might be surprised at how, possibly how competitive that this two-stop strategy looks to be, just the way that Pure Axel is driving it at the moment. But obviously it all comes down to the second half of the race and whether he can make up this time on Norfolk Blue. He's had a very clean race so far, and had a bit of a hiccup off the start. Lost a couple of positions there, just didn't get a good run off the line, and then just got swamped into turn 1 by the guys on the hypersofts, as he has a bit of a slide there coming across the bridge. Look at that. But other than that, he has been pretty much flawless throughout the rest of this race. But we still got a long way to go. This is the thing with Singapore, it's a long lap time, but you got 31 laps of them to go, so 31 laps in total, 14 to go. And in terms of race time, the number of minutes the drivers are on the circuit for, this is the longest on the calendar, regularly getting up towards that 1 hour mark. Whereas most of the races this season, I mean, Monza and Belgium, those races are under 40 minutes. So yeah, it's quite a difference, and you really notice it when you're in the car and driving, that this race just seems to go on and on and on. And especially in a situation, I think, for some of the guys further back in the field, the likes of Plevs. Well, actually, Plevs is not too far behind Pete Crichton, now that I say that. He's only a few seconds back, so he's got something to go after. But for the likes of Piga and Harry Tomato, I mean, those guys are in pretty much no man's land, and they're just kind of counting down the laps, I think, at this point, unless something happens to people in front of them. But in Singapore, something definitely can happen, and just getting to the end of this race without major incident is normally a very good way to get yourself a decent haul of points, as Harry Tomato picks himself up a 3-second time penalty. Quite easy to pick up time penalties as well here. Just the sheer number of corners just makes it more likely than it is at other tracks. And to really run fast lap times around here, you do have to be quite aggressive over the curbs, and running white line to white line in some places. So yeah, quite an easy place to pick up corner cutting penalties. as we look a little further up the front, and Norfolk Blue is starting to reel in these guys that have been out on the softs since the start of the race, and he's getting up behind MLGH now, and it is absolutely critical for his race that he is able to get past these guys. Here Tomato has had a moment. Is he just letting these guys through, or is he put it in a wall somewhere? I think he may have just taken a rather extreme approach to letting the leaders through, but fair play to him. He's not got a huge amount to race for at the moment, so he's just decided he just wants to get way out of the way of these guys. But it's critical for Norfolk Blue now. Oh, LGH pits, perfect for Norfolk Blue. He will be feeling very lucky after that. He's just got the hassle of attempting to overtake a car, and well, it just moves out of the way for you. So MLGH in the pits, ultra soft tires going on that car. He will run to the end of the race, and I think he's looking for an undercut on Contrast, because those fresh ultra softs will give him a huge amount of pace. And well, speaking of pace at the moment, Norfolk Blue is reeling in both Contrast. He's reeling in Pure Axle as well, who I think will be in the pits on this lap for another set of ultras on that two-stop strategy, and we'll see how much he's able to reel in Norfolk Blue in by the end. But I mean, Norfolk Blue, his tires are still very young. He's only done 4 laps on them, so his pace isn't going to drop off at all, and I think it's going to be a big ask for Pure Axle to possibly catch him up. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. So we've got some Force India front wing just lying on the track there. I think that Stuart Mackenzie's front wing is still there. So that's less than ideal for the drivers. Fortunately, we do run full damage in the AOR leagues rather than simulation, partly due to that that effect of simulation damage. If you run over debris on the track, you can get punctures, but it's not enabled here, partly for that reason, also partly just because of when you've got so many drivers from so many different places racing one league, the connection can be well, it's less than perfect on this game, I'll put it that way. So there can be some decent incidents. We obviously saw that with Stuart Mackenzie earlier on, and if you're running some damage, especially turn 1 with people desyncing around, can be absolutely lethal. But yes, that's why we run full damage here, and it means you don't have to worry about the debris on the track. So into the pits, Pure Axle, he's in the pits for Ultrasoft tires, and we got Contrast in as well for Ultrasofts, and this just about, MLGH has actually come out of the pits ahead of Darren. So really solid stint from MLGH. He's in 9th in the championship, he's up to 4th right now, and he's got a possibility of a podium here if he's able to undercut Contrast, who is trundling his way to the end of the pit lane. MLGH coming around the final corner, and is he going to get this undercut done? And there's Contrast on your left coming out of the pits. MLGH is going to be side by side with him coming out of it, and he does just about get the move done. He is ahead, so that was a big undercut from MLGH, and he gets himself up onto the podium in that Ferrari. And if he's able to hang on to that, it would be his first podium of this season. So MLGH really getting the strategy done right. On the other hand, Pure Axle out in second. He's 21 seconds behind Norfolk Blue. I think that's probably a bit too much for him to catch over the last 11 laps. So yeah, I mean, very interesting strategy choice from Pure Axle. I mean, who knows? Norfolk Blue is normally the quickest guy out there, so if he's able to get anywhere close to him towards the end of the race, I think he'd be quite happy with that. But yeah, he's had a really interesting and a good run so far as Pure Axle. I don't want to commentate or curse anybody, really. He's still got another 11 laps to go. You have no idea when somebody is going to stack it in a wall. It could happen at any point of this circuit, but Contrast now out of the pits. He's got these ultras warmed up. He's right on the back of MLGH, and this is going to be the battle for the podium for the rest of this race. These guys have got to be careful as well that they don't run into each other and cost each other front wings, because you've got Darren only a few seconds behind. Yeah, he's on soft tires, he'll be much slower, but if you break your front wing, he will catch you. So in Contrast, he's got to try and apply as much pressure as he can to MLGH and force him into a mistake, and MLGH's just got to keep his cool, just got to keep driving laps, and ensuring in particular that he gets a good exit out of that final corner, and then the corner out of turn 4 down that straight as MLGH sets the fastest lap of the race, a 39.3. I expect to see that possibly beaten by Pure Axle on the next lap. He was very quick on the Ultrasofts earlier on in the race. Look at this contrast all over the back of MLGH now as he comes into turn 4, and he will be getting that engine up into mode 4 with the overtake of the energy, as well as in rich. He's running very low on fuel though, contrast. He's going to have to worry about that in the final stint of the race as he goes side by side into turn 6 on the inside line. He's later on the brakes, and that Toro Rosso up onto the podium. So MLGH, he might have pulled off a beautiful undercut, but he's not able to hang on to the position. Contrast actually made that look kind of easy, to be honest. So he storms past him up onto the podium, and he will now go chasing after Pure Axel. Move happening further down as well. I mentioned these guys a few laps ago saying they were closer together, but yeah, Plebs is up past Pete Crichton into 6th place. That would be a great result for Plebs there if he's able to hang on to that. He's on older soft tires though, so yeah, I mean, we did say earlier, Pete is he said in the group chat pre-race that he's not done a huge amount of practice, and I gotta say he looks a little bit tentative around here. Just make sure he doesn't run into any kind of wall. He's in P7 and he'd be very happy with that points haul, considering the amount of practice that he's apparently done. So I think he'd be quite happy with that if he's able to just to hang on to it till the end of the race. I think there's been a race of attrition here in Marina Bay, but MLGH is still within that slipstream as Pure Axel absolutely smashes the fastest lap. He goes 1.3 seconds faster than what MLGH last managed on the previous lap. And I'm just gonna pause for a second here and have a look at the lap times Norfolk Blue is doing. So Norfolk Blue is currently doing sort of high 39s. So if Pure Axel wants to catch him, he really needs to be doing high 37s, which I think is probably out of, we need to be doing consistent high 37s the entirety of the rest of the stint. So I think that's probably a little bit too much to ask, but I've got to say that two-stop strategy looks stronger than I first thought. At least if you're in a race where there's some carnage early on and you lose a lot of drivers, hey, it might be worth trying out. But he's currently 19 seconds behind Norfolk Blue. We'll see how these Ultrasofts hang on in the final stint as we go yellow flag somewhere in Sector 2. And who on earth was that for? Having a look around. Oh, it's Harry Tomato. That's why I couldn't find it. He picks up a corner cutting penalty for his efforts as well. And I think he's lost a bit of front wing, pulling out of the way to let Darren through. A bit of a sad Mercedes at the moment with some damage. I think can't quite see the front right portion of that wing, but I'm assuming the way that car's handling, he's picked up something. But yeah, Norfolk Blue, well, he's been really phenomenal this whole season, to be honest. Ever since he came into the league, I think it's fair to say he's been the quickest man at most of the races and has picked up many, many wins. He's on track to do it again here in Singapore. Just has to keep it clean for the final 8 laps of the race. Pure Axel is catching him, but it's probably not enough to really put up a fight for the win towards the end. And then we got these two battling it out for the podium behind him. Contrast and MLJH, and Contrast really needs every single point that he can get from this race because James is not here. James is ahead of him in the championship by 36 points. If Contrast can grab 15 points here today, that will take a big chunk out of that gap between 3rd and 4th in the title. Also worth noting that for Contrast, I mean, he's got Darren behind him in the championship, who's been on an absolute rampage recently. Darren, in the races he's attended, is actually on a podium streak of 6 races in a row, so he's currently sitting in 5th, and I think will be quite disappointed with that, the way that he's been driving recently. But who knows? I mean, maybe if one of these two guys, Contrast and MLJH that is, overheats the ultra soft tires, then he might be in with a shot at picking one of them off. But we'll see how he gets on for the rest of the stint as Pigga makes his way up past Plebs, because Plebs has pulled into the pits. And he's going to put on some ultra softs to go to the end of the race. Look for some quick lap times there, and Pigga's quite a long way ahead of him now. But who knows? I mean, if he's done 9 laps on these ultras, actually bumps the wall too. Norfolk Blue picking up a 3-second time penalty. Still a big gap behind him though, 17 seconds. It's a long way for Axel to go. But yeah, I mean, Pigga's he's been on his ultra sauce for 9 laps, so I wouldn't be surprised if he actually needs to make another pit stop. I'm not sure how many sets of tires he's going to have left at this point, but yeah, I think he'll have a hard time getting those all the way to the end in any sort of reasonable state. But still, this battle for the podium rages on between MLJH and Contrast, and you know, this is just about well, this track is almost a battle of wits and pressure. Really, you've just got to keep the driver in front under pressure, and hopefully you can force them into a mistake. But Contrast is very experienced. He's been in the league since day one in season one, so he's got plenty of experience under his belt, plenty of podiums under his belt as well. So if there's anybody in a situation that's going to hang on to it, it will be Contrast. MLJH might need to do something a bit special here, but we'll see if he's able to get any kind of move done. So we've had another yellow flag. Who on earth is that for? I think it was for Piga, who's lost his front wing again going into that grandstand section. Look at how little downforce he has. He's really struggling there, and he will have to pit now. I was worried for him in terms of strategy. Well, that front wing has forced his hand, and he needs to make a final pit stop, or at least I hope a final pit stop for his sake. But yeah, we'll see what he goes for. He's got 6 laps to go, so who knows, might even be a set of hypersauce and might go for a fastest lap of the race. But yeah, that gap between Norfolk Blue and Pure Axle is not coming down too much anymore. Pure Axle's gaining a few tenths a lap, but it's nowhere near enough. He really needs to be 2 seconds a lap faster, or even more, to make that up. So Axle not quite able to hone in on Norfolk Blue. And the great thing about those soft tires as a race tire is that you can push them. You know, you're not worried about them overheating so much, so you can actually drive aggressively. Whereas on the Ultras, yeah, they've got an incredible amount of grip, especially at the start of the stint. But you have to drive cautiously. You have to drive conservatively on those tires to make sure that you don't overheat them. So, you know, if you do push too hard at the starting point of the stint, it really will hamper you for the rest of it. So we'll see if any of these guys on the Ultras start to struggle towards the end. But and we got some big gaps behind, down to just 6 cars on the lead lap here in Singapore. That's not entirely uncommon, to be honest. Races around this circuit, MLJH getting very close to Contrast coming into the swing section. But yeah, it's really is a grueling circuit, such a long race, and the walls are so close, so many high curbs, and it just causes casualties around here. We lost 4 drivers already. Maznat, LGB, Crema, and Stewart were all out of the race very early on. The 9 that we have running currently been going, you know, as a 9 for quite a long time. But yeah, 3 of them a lap down now, Plebs, Piga, and Harry Tomato. And those guys will really just be focused on bringing it home. That's the main thing for them. I mean, we've got Plebs coming through turn 3. Piga is a good 30 seconds behind him, and then Harry Tomato is he's on the completely opposite side of the track completely. So yeah, those guys very spread out. And for them, it just is about getting it to that finish line and picking up whatever points are available. And hey, I mean, you might have had a rough race, but if you can grab some points out of it at the end, I think they'll be quite happy with that, especially for those that are lower down in the championship. And speaking of those being lower down in the championship, I mean, I did mention Harry Tomato earlier on. These are critical points for him in terms of overtaking Entei and pulling even with Rumble in terms of points. But for Piga is currently sat P20 in the championship right now. He's got 1 point. So if he's able to pick up P8 with 4 points here today, that will jump him up a position and would be his best result of the season so far. So yeah, he'll be hoping and praying that he can make it to the end. And then we got Plebs as well a little further down. He did join later on. He joined at Baku at the same time that Norfolk Blue did. Plebs currently sitting 14th in the championship with 28 points. So if he can hang on to this result, he will jump Wimpinator up to 13th as well. So, oh, I say that, he's retired from the session. I've completely commentator cursed that, haven't I? That's, yeah, that's not great. Plebs is out of this race, so I feel pretty awful about that now, to be honest. And he's done it on lap 26 for him as well, so he's not going to get classified. So unfortunately, I've really just I've spoken too soon there, and Plebs is gone. But for Piga and Harry Tomato, hey, that's more points for them available. Oh, that's what's happened. He's right underneath that grandstand. I'm surprised that's not a safety car, to be honest. Very surprised it's not a safety car, because that car is right in the middle of the circuit. I think it has ghosted by this point. That's in a really risky position. As Pete Crichton's gone for an alternate tire strategy, it seems like here. Not quite sure what to say about that one, but I think the less said about that, the better. But yeah, so we got Piga right on the back of the podium battlers. He's on brand new tires. The problem is he's a lap down, so he's now found his way up into 6th position. And I'll tell you what, Pete Crichton's stuck in the pits. He's absolutely stuck, and I think that might be the end of his race, to be honest. I don't want to look away from this battle for too long. Piga's got a brilliant view of this podium battle. He's in a really awkward position now. I think he really just needs to sit behind and wait, to be honest. There's not much he can really do here, because these two are a lap ahead. They're battling for the podium, and they've had pretty good base all race long, so in a really awkward position. You can see Piga's just backing off here. I think he knows. I think he knows that he can't really do much, but with all the chaos, Piga's gone from 8th to 6th in just a couple of laps. Plebs retiring. Pete just getting stuck. Oh, he runs very deep, almost into the wall. Careful there. Don't want to lose another one. But, yeah, I mean, Pete Crichton, he's still stuck there. He's in the pit lane. He's just jammed in his pit box. I've seen that a couple times in this game. People just coming into the pits and they just won't release you. And you just get stuck. And that really is his race over. So, those guys still surviving at the back of the field, Piga and Harry Tomato, last couple of laps have been, well, they've been pretty much an absolute golden hour for them in terms of points. I mean, huge results for them in terms of their championship position. But MLGH, well, he's on the verge of a huge result here for him. He has had 1 4th place this season already, and that came in Belgium. His next best result is 5th at Monaco, so he's been up in this situation a couple of times this season, but hasn't found his way onto the podium yet. He runs very, very wide through turn 4 into the wall. He just bumps it. I don't think he got any damage. You can give it a light tap and get away with it, but it was sight on, which is the most important thing, so that front wing was protected. But he's all over the back of Contrast, and it's just about if he can find a way through. It's been a really great race for the Ferrari driver here, and well, he would be ecstatic with a podium. So just about keeping that pressure on. We've got 3 laps to go here. Norfolk Blue still storming away up front. Pure Axel just not able to reel him in. Norfolk Blue's pace on the soft tires is so good. And yeah, Pete Crichton's race is definitely done. He cannot get out of that pit box. So Contrast with a bit of an awkward line across the bridge though, and that puts MLGH really close to him. He's not quite close enough though to get a move done. Contrast did somehow manage to turn that into a half decent exit. Bit of oversteer there for MLGH as well. These guys have got to be careful they don't completely cook their tires, because Darren is not actually far behind. He's only 5 seconds back. Ooh, big slide there for MLGH in the dirty air. So yeah, this is really the only battle that we got left at this point. I'm glad to see these two side by side on track, or at least together on track. But yeah, that car is starting to look a little bit twitchy for MLGH in the dirty air. If you're very close up behind another car, it does get a little bit of extra tire temperature, so you know, it just removes that grip as well, particularly on traction in the dirty air. It's hard to get the power down. There's just less downforce, less grip, and it just kind of catches you out as he runs very wide into turn 1 there, and dirty air catching him out a bit as well. So yeah, for these guys, I mean, it's just about whether Contrast can hang on, and if MLGH is able to either push him into a mistake as he whacks the wall again out of turn 4. Once again, that front wing is looking okay. I don't think he has damage, but he's got to be careful there that he doesn't pick any up. As Contrast has gained a little bit of time due to that, gives him a slight bit of breathing room, but I think MLGH is going to be right on the back of him very soon. But yeah, as we come on to the final few laps now, so we've lost essentially 6 drivers from this race. Pete is, his race is done. Less of that crash just a few laps ago. Obviously the 4 that we lost earlier. So Singapore just completely taking casualties, as it pretty much always does. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty interesting race, I think, on the strategy front. The 2-stop from Pure Axel looked really strong for a while, especially the mid part of the race. It was looking really good, but Norfolk Blue has just had phenomenal pace on those soft tires, and Pure Axel's had a very hard time gaining any sort of ground on him. And then this strategy from Contrast and MLGH, softs to ultra softs has worked very nicely for them, getting them both up into really strong positions, and it's just about whether MLGH can find a way through. He's got this Renault right behind him as well, but that's Piggy. He's lapped, and he probably will not go for an overtake. He seems to be quite happy just to sit behind as MLGH is almost pushing Contrast through turn 3 there, and we'll see if he's able to get a good exit, avoid the wall here out of turn 4, and Contrast runs deep into the corner. This is the best opportunity that MLGH has had. He's going to go for the podium here surely as he goes around the outside. Contrast defending it hard. He's late on the brakes, but MLGH has swung it all the way around the outside. There's a bit of contact, I think, but he just gets the move done. What a great overtake from MLGH, and he gets himself up into 3rd place. Huge slide coming out of turn 7 there. Stamps on the throttle, nearly spins it. He'll be very happy with that, and now can Contrast come back at him in the final 2 laps and possibly find a way through. MLGH used a huge amount of his energy at getting that overtake done, so Contrast does have a little bit extra available to him, and these guys got to be very careful of Darren because he's only a couple seconds behind them now. If these guys really start to battle hard over the last lap, then they could be in trouble from him. But Norfolk Blue also on the final lap. He's just made his way through turn 1, so we will watch him cross the line when that does happen. But until then, we're sticking with this battle for the podium. As MLGH is putting he's really putting the hammer down now. He's trying to get Contrast out of that DRS. He runs very deep under the grandstands, actually, MLGH. Contrast doing his absolute best to stick with him. Look at the oversteer there. Car just stepping out on him, and MLGH is almost a second ahead, not quite. Contrast just hangs on to him, and now this is final lap of the race. Is he going to be able to pull anything in through the first couple of corners and gain enough on MLGH to get close to him on the straight? You can tell those tires are struggling the way that it's kind of understeering mid-corner and then oversteering on exit so badly for Contrast. He gets a pretty good run through turn 4, but MLGH has had a great run out of there, and he's storming ahead. Contrast is watching this podium drive away from him. He's not close enough to get a move done, not close enough really to get anywhere near MLGH, and MLGH has just got to hang on now for the rest of this lap. I'm not sure what the penalty situation is, but we will go up to the front of the race to Norfolk Blue, who's had an absolute... Ooh, that wall is broken, actually. I think that was when Plebs hit it, so the driver's going to be careful of that, but Norfolk Blue's had an absolute stormer of a race. Great pace, great strategy, very, very clean drive from him, and he picks up yet another win in Oceania. What a brilliant drive from him. And yeah, well deserved, and that gives him a huge lead over Stewart in the championship, as Stewart obviously crashed out on lap 1, I think, due to desync. So yeah, that is going to put Norfolk Blue a long way ahead, and certainly in the box seat for the championship as the fireworks are going here in Marina Bay, and Pure Axel comes home for 2nd place. Great result for him. A really good drive on that 2-stop strategy. Did something different and made it work, and he was the only one really on the 2-stop to really make those ultras work in a good way, as MLGH is sliding everywhere through that 3rd sector. Those ultras are struggling for him. His Contrast flings it into the final corner, and MLGH crosses the line in 3rd, and he does get 3rd, so no penalties, spoilers there, as Darren will pick up 5th, of course, and then Pigga in 6th, Harry Tomato in 7th. Pete Crichton, he's still in the pits. His team have left him now. They've just abandoned him. His car's just there. He's just sitting there. There's nobody coming to help him. So yeah, he's kind of stuck. He might need somebody to come help him get out of the car. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what I know on there. Just a game glitch or something for Pete Crichton. Really unfortunate, because he was on for some half decent points here today, despite having very little practice. But Norfolk Blue really in a league of his own here, wins the race by 20 seconds. Great drive from him, and really gives him just the absolute box seat in that championship fight. So yeah, I wonder how many races he's won now. That will be his 8th win of the season. Phenomenal driving really so far from Norfolk Blue. See if he's able to carry it on, but yeah, just had phenomenal pace, especially on the soft tires. He was able to pretty much keep Pure Axel on ultra softs in arm's length. It was incredibly impressive. But I've got to say, I think my driver of the day has got to be MLJH. What a brilliant result for him to end up on the podium. It's his first podium this season. I'm not sure if it's his first podium ever. MLJH is one of the veterans of this league, been in there since season 1. But he will be very, very happy with that, and was able to get the better of contrast right at the very end of the race. Those two were so close in pace the whole way through, and yeah, we're stuck here because Pete's still in the pits, and it's going to run down the full 3-minute timer as we go towards the end of the race, as he's still there in his wet tires. I mean, who knows? Maybe the team saw the strategy call and just kind of abandoned it. I'm not quite sure, but no, it's just a game glitch. Really unfortunate for Pete, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen in terms of the results, whether that he's going to get points or not. I mean, I guess he is technically here at the finish of the race, but I've no idea what's going to happen with that. I think we might need to go and speak to some of the other people at AOR, speak to league runners, and see what they say in terms of the results there. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but yeah, I don't know if that's going to be counted as a DNF or an 8 for Pete Crichton. He only made it about 26 laps into the race, so yeah, just truly bizarre glitch. But yeah, our podium sitters, Norfolk Blue, Pure Axle, and MLGH, really great drivers from all those guys. Norfolk Blue with phenomenal pace, Pure Axle doing something different on strategy and making it work nicely, and well, MLGH with his first podium of the season, and is certainly my pick for driver of the day. But yeah, I mean, contrast gains a couple points in Darren in the championship, but not as much as he would have wanted. Pigo with the P6, a huge result for him in terms of the championship. He only had 1 point before this race, and he will jump both Mazna and Chucky. So at least get himself up into 18th and within striking distance of, well, up to 15th, to be honest, if he has another result like that. And then Hero Tomato has brought that car home in 7th. That's a good result for him as well. A couple laps down, but hey, he made it to the end, and that's just what he needed to do. The drivers that we lost through the race, sort of Pete Crichton, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with that. Plevs laid on with a crash under the grandstands, and then very early on we lost Maznat, Sir LJB, Crema, and Stewart, our championship contender. That opening lap crash into the wall was certainly decent, I think. Interesting to see his view on it, but yeah, it was just really, really unfortunate for him. So yeah, I mean, that's been the Singapore Grand Prix. It's been a pretty interesting race. We had some good battling, particularly in the first stints, and then between MLGH and Contrast late on in the race, giving us some entertainment. But yeah, if you're hoping to watch some more racing, then the Xbox race has been going on at the same time. Those guys have always got good, interesting races going on over there. And the European and American leagues will be running later on today. The European leagues top tiers running at 7, 8, and 9 p.m. UK time. That's PS4, PC, and Xbox, and all the other tiers, everything F2 and downwards, will be running at the standard 8 p.m. time slot. That's once again UK time, and then the American PC League is also streamed. There's always fun racing over there, and those guys will be running at 1 a.m. UK time. So yeah, whatever time zone that you're in, you might need to do some conversions on that. But I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning into the stream, and yeah, we will see you next week in Russia. That'll be a very interesting race, and certainly a tough track on track limits and corner cutting penalties. So I think a couple people in this grid might struggle with it a little bit, but yeah, certainly a very different circuit from Singapore, a bit faster, a bit more flowing, and a lot less tire wear. So yeah, just that'll be an interesting race, and it seems to be, you know, in real life one, the Sochi races, they struggle to produce great races, and then in AOR, it seems like every single time we get there, the races are absolutely mental. So certainly tune in for that one next week. But thanks for joining me, and I hope you all have a great Sunday.